Imagine a man so feared and powerful, his name alone sends shivers down the spines of his enemies. This man is Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán. A figure cloaked in infamy, El Chapo's reputation precedes him. He's not just a man, but an empire, a symbol of terror and power. As one of the world's most wanted criminals, he's left a notorious mark that's hard to erase. But how did this man rise to such infamy? Let's delve into the early life of El Chapo. Born into poverty, Joaquín Guzmán's journey towards becoming El Chapo was one marked by survival and ambition. Born in the mountainous region of Sinaloa, Mexico, in the early 1950s, Joaquín Guzmán Loera was the third of 11 children. His family lived in a mud brick house with no electricity or running water, and his parents eked out a living by farming beans and corn. But the young Guzmán had dreams that extended far beyond the confines of his rustic upbringing. His first taste of the drug trade came through his father, Emilio Guzmán Bustillos, a violent man who grew opium poppy to supplement his meager farming income. By the age of 15, Joaquín was already immersed in the world of narcotics, earning more money than his father. As a young man, Guzmán was introduced to Pedro Aviles Perez, a key figure in the Mexican drug trade. Under Aviles' tutelage, Guzmán learned the ins and outs of the drug trafficking business, proving himself to be both resourceful and ambitious. His rise through the ranks was rapid, and by the late 70s, Guzmán had become a top-ranking member of the Guadalajara cartel, one of the most powerful drug trafficking organizations of the time. But Guzmán wasn't satisfied with being just a cog in the wheel. His ambition and cunning led him to form his own cartel, the Sinaloa cartel, in the late 80s. Known for its innovative smuggling techniques and brutal violence, the Sinaloa cartel quickly became a major player in the Mexican drug trade. Guzmán's ambition didn't stop at the Mexican border. He sought to expand his empire, setting his sights on the United States. His ruthless determination and strategic acumen led to the Sinaloa cartel's dominance over the U.S. drug market, flooding the nation's streets with cocaine, heroin, and methamphetamine. As El Chapo's power grew, so did his boldness and his empire's grip on Mexico. His rise from a poverty-stricken child to one of the world's most notorious drug lords was as remarkable as it was devastating, leaving a trail of violence and corruption in its wake. From the ashes of fallen cartels, El Chapo created a criminal empire of unparalleled reach and power, the Sinaloa cartel. The cartel's roots can be traced back to the late 80s when El Chapo saw an opportunity in the demise of the Guadalajara cartel. He seized this chance to build his own organization, one that would eventually overshadow all others in its ruthlessness and scope. The Sinaloa cartel, under El Chapo's leadership, quickly established itself as a dominant force in the global drug trade. This was no small-time operation. The Sinaloa cartel was a complex international network that smuggled billions of dollars worth of narcotics from Mexico into the United States every year. Its influence stretched across continents, reaching as far as Europe and Asia. El Chapo's strategic brilliance was instrumental in the cartel's rise. He pioneered the use of tunnels for drug smuggling, a tactic that allowed him to bypass border controls and deliver his illicit goods straight into the hands of American consumers. His audacious strategies, combined with his knack for evading law enforcement, made the Sinaloa cartel an unprecedented force in the underworld. The impact of the Sinaloa cartel's operations was profound, both in Mexico and the United States. In Mexico, the cartel's activities fueled a bloody drug war that has claimed tens of thousands of lives. The violence, corruption, and instability wrought by El Chapo's empire have left deep scars on the nation. Meanwhile, in the United States, the influx of drugs from the Sinaloa cartel exacerbated the country's opioid crisis. The sheer volume of narcotics flooding across the border has had devastating consequences, leading to an increase in addiction rates and overdose deaths. Yet despite the cartel's seeming invincibility, its reign was not without challenges. El Chapo's audacity and ambition made him a target. His enemies were many, and his downfall, though far off, was inevitable. The empire that El Chapo built was as volatile as it was powerful. But even the mighty can fall, and El Chapo was no exception. Captured but far from defeated, El Chapo proved that even prison walls couldn't hold him. The tale of El Chapo's life is punctuated by a series of daring escapes that seem more akin to a Hollywood film than a real-life narrative. His first getaway was in January of 2001. He escaped from Puente Grande, a maximum security prison, hidden inside a laundry cart. It was a brazen act that stunned the world and added a new chapter to his growing legend. But the audacity of this escape was eclipsed by what came next. In July of 2015, El Chapo, once again in a maximum security prison, vanished. This time he slipped through a hole in his cell's shower and disappeared into an elaborate mile-long tunnel that had been dug right under the noses of his captors. Imagine that. A mile-long tunnel, complete with lighting and ventilation, leading straight to freedom. These escapes not only amplified El Chapo's reputation as an elusive figure, but they also highlighted the depth of corruption within Mexico's prison system. Each escape was a slap in the face of the authorities, a bold statement of his untouchability. They sent a chilling message to his enemies and law enforcement agencies alike. El Chapo was always one step ahead. But every audacious escape had a ripple effect. They publicized his criminal activities, drawing the attention of international law enforcement agencies and turning him into a global target. They made him a household name, but they also painted a bullseye on his back. With each escape, the commitment to capture El Chapo intensified. More resources were poured into the manhunt, and the pressure on him increased exponentially. The Mexican and US governments tightened their cooperation, pooling their resources and intelligence to hunt down the elusive kingpin. However, every escape only served to tighten the net around him. Each daring getaway, while momentarily triumphant, only served to make his ultimate capture inevitable. In the end, El Chapo's own audacity would become his downfall. The world watched in anticipation as the hunt for El Chapo intensified, leading to his eventual capture. An international manhunt was underway, with law enforcement from both Mexico and the United States pooling resources and intelligence. El Chapo, the notorious kingpin of the Sinaloa cartel, had slipped through their fingers time and again, but they were determined not to let it happen a third time. The task was Herculean. El Chapo's vast network of informants, coupled with his adeptness at disappearing into the rugged terrain of the Sierra Madre Mountains, made him an elusive quarry. Yet the authorities were undeterred. They painstakingly gathered intelligence, following every lead, every whisper of his whereabouts, in a cat-and-mouse game that spanned across continents. The break in the case came in early 2016. A meeting between El Chapo and Hollywood actor Sean Penn provided the authorities with the crucial piece of information they needed. It led them to a safe house in Los Mochis, a coastal city in El Chapo's home state of Sinaloa. The trap was set. In the pre-dawn hours of January 8th, Mexican Marines stormed the safe house. A fierce firefight ensued, but El Chapo, ever the escape artist, slipped away through a secret tunnel hidden under a bathtub. Yet this time his freedom was short-lived. Hours later, he was apprehended on a highway outside the city. The news of El Chapo's capture sent shockwaves around the world. The seemingly invincible drug lord, the man who had become a symbol of impunity and corruption, was finally in custody. His capture marked not just the end of a multi-year manhunt, but also a significant victory in the war against drug trafficking. However, as we'll see, this was not the end of El Chapo's story. He would continue to make headlines, even from behind bars, and his legacy would live on in the criminal underworld. With El Chapo behind bars, the era of his reign had seemingly come to an end. Or had it? In the wake of his capture, El Chapo's legacy remains a complex tapestry of fear, power, and destruction. His reign, marked by bloodshed and corruption, left indelible scars on the face of Mexico and the United States. His narcotics empire, the Sinaloa cartel, flooded both countries with unimaginable amounts of illicit substances, fueling addiction and violence in their wake. Despite his incarceration, the Sinaloa cartel continues to operate, a testament to the deeply entrenched systems of power and control El Chapo had established. The capture of El Chapo was not the end, but merely a chapter in the ongoing war against drugs. The ripple effects of his actions are felt to this day. In Mexico, the fight against the cartel's influence continues, a struggle that's cost countless lives and resources. Across the border in the United States, the public health crisis fueled by the influx of drugs remains a pressing issue. The legacy of El Chapo is one of devastation and turmoil. His story is a stark reminder of the far-reaching impacts of the global drug trade, a web of darkness that extends far beyond the borders of any one nation. It's a sobering narrative of unchecked power, corruption, and the human cost of greed. Thus, the story of Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán serves as a chilling reminder of the devastating power of the global drug trade.